yourselves.
I'm Angela.
Good evening, Angela. Good to see you.
Good to see you. I'm Rosanna.
Rosanna, glad you're here.
I'm Mac, and this is Marilyn in trance with John and Martha and who knows who else. This is August the 16th, 2010. We started our recording.
Hey, Mac, have a good evening and hope that this is a prosperous one for you too.
Thank you.
And who do we have here?
I'm Kim.
Kim, welcome. We're so glad to have you come, and I hope you enjoy your evening. And we have lots of information tonight for people who are curious about what's going on, and there's a lot of things happening, and we wanted to give some information tonight, so hope you learned something.
Thank you.
You're so welcome, and don't feel shy just because you haven't been here before. We're just all a happy family. And I just want to say how nice it is to have such warm summer evenings, and it's very comfortable to have a pleasant evening in this warm weather. It makes me feel like I'm in Hawaii. But I know I'm not, and I know that this is just a real summertime for you people, so enjoy. I just know that St.Germain's coming in first tonight. He wanted me to tell you so you wouldn't be surprised. So he's here in just a minute, okay?
All right, thank you. I'm sorry, Martha.
That's okay. Good evening.
Good evening.
I am St.Germain, and I am here tonight with some information and some people I hope are going to be able to use this in a very practical way. You understand that spirituality is very practical in our day-to-day life. So many people think you go to church on Sunday and sit in the pew, and that's being spiritual, but really spirituality is to be applied in our daily lives. And when you apply it in your daily life, you become spiritual. Can you understand that as your behavior changes, that changes you? You live your way into a new way of being, and in doing that, you become spiritualized. And as you add new ways to your living, you will notice some changes. I'm sure you all have noticed changes as the years have passed and you've worked on trying to apply some of these ideas to your lives, have you not?
We have.
Well, I'm so glad to hear that, because as we're now in ascension, and so many people are wanting to move into ascension, into a higher consciousness of where we're all moving, and that's with the age of Aquarius. There was a musical about that many years ago. And as we move into that new age, and we are in the very beginnings of that new change, you can cooperate with the universe and move into it more easily. So many people find change difficult and they resist it, and that creates more pain in your life to resist the change. So tonight I was hoping, because I'm all about ascension, that you could find out a way to help cooperate with the universe and make your change in this one part of your life a little easier for you, and to understand why the change is so necessary. We are going to take you tonight from a third dimensional point of view for forgiveness into quantum forgiveness, which is fifth dimension. And so tonight you are going to make a big leap. And so in explaining that, I would like you to understand that when you forgive somebody, it's not because you approved of what they did. Their behavior, their attitudes, the way they handled something could have been very inappropriate, very poorly handled, very sad to say, from a sick or ego-minded place, depending on what the harm and wound was. We've all gone through our wounds, and what our ascending is about is to see it from a higher point of view, and that's where the quantum part comes in. But we'll start out at the beginning tonight. And when you forgive somebody who in your past, or maybe someone right now in your life at work, maybe somebody that's a relative, maybe somebody that's an acquaintance that caused some difficulty for you. You never know when these certain circumstances are going to come along. And we take personal offense and we feel very upset about it, and it makes our energy go very dense. And this dense energy is part of third dimension that we want to leave. So tonight we are going to talk about releasing that so we don't hang on to it and can move out of this space. Not because what they did was going to be acceptable. It's not, probably. You wouldn't be so pained and in a hurtful place about it, or so angry because of it. But because when you forgive someone, you do it for yourself, not for them. You break the emotional chain to them. Because in not forgiving, they keep taking your energy, you're giving your energy away, and you stay down in third dimension. Every time you give energy away, you are less than who you truly were meant to be in your whole self. You give it to them. And we aren't going to do that anymore. But we are going to see them from a place where we can recognize that they're children of God too. And they are to be forgiven because we do not want to be attached to that energy connection with them anymore. So when you forgive somebody, you give up the emotional connection for a new today. You cut chain, you cut the cord, you cut whatever way you have connected to that person, and creating and feeling that victimized part that you do not want to continue hanging on to. You want to release it and move on. You see, as we move on, we move up into a higher consciousness out of third dimension. Third dimension is the dense energy where we are stuck. Right and wrong, good and bad, criticism and judgment. And you're judging that person unmercifully, because if we move into quantum perception, and there is only you and your energy, and you created that for you to learn a lesson. So that person, in forgiving them in third dimension, cuts the cord, but as you move into a higher perception of what happened, you start to understand that you created that life, that they played out, and they participated and acted it very, very well. They were Shakespeare said, the world is a stage and we're just the players. They played their part so well, you bought it hook, line, and sinker. But they were acting out the script you wrote. You're the Shakespeare of your life. You wrote that script. And when you see that they did such a great job in acting it out, you really don't even need to forgive them, because they were doing their part very, very, it was so real. You bought it hook, line, and sinker. So what you might see yourself sitting in an audience in a theater, and they're on the stage playing out their part, and the show has come to an end, and they're coming out from the curtain. They're bowing, and you can stand up and applaud and say, wow, I really bought into that particular lesson. You did a marvelous job. You played your part so well. I had to learn how to send compassion to you. I had to learn how not to let it affect me and see you as a child of God who was actually helping me heal that part of my soul, that you were a mirror of what needed to still be healed in my own being. And I would have not known that was still a problem if you had not acted in that way. So thank you for playing your part. Thank you for being so believable that I got furious, upset, and crazy about it. And now I can see that I am taking responsibility because I created it in the first place, and I don't need to forgive you. In fact, for you people that have not been here for a few times, a few sessions back, John gave you a very wonderful spiritual tool. And I would like to refresh your memories, Mac, and these people would hopefully be able to find this useful. But he gave you, if you remember Mr. Clean's ads about the white eraser for the kitchen, when you erase marks and the dark, dirty spots, and this white eraser is supposed to do such a great job. Well, think of your white magic eraser of grace. And as you put down the people you need to forgive on your paper, and you list them, and you can erase them with your white, take out the dark and heavy energy and erase it with your magic eraser and replace it with grace. It was all a big illusion for you to learn compassion. Now you can live in compassion and joy. That is the fifth dimension. You are rising above the old hurts and problems and pain and suffering, and seeing that you have created a new world for yourself. You do not have to keep recreating the old one. You see, the old, if you don't forgive, you will continue to get those lessons until you do. So it's time, because of ascension, to say, I give up the game of continuing to have the pain of blaming others for my emotional well-being, and take responsibility for that. So as you erase those harms and forgive, realizing the only one you have to forgive is yourself. You created this. You created those lessons. They were absolutely necessary before you came into this lifetime. You sat down with your ascended masters at a table and talked about what was necessary for you to walk through for the growth necessary in this lifetime. And guess what? You people are learning to be able to handle it as if you are more mature, spiritualized people, that we all are one, and that we can move into being there for everyone. And the fun part of this whole thing is that when we all get into spirit and go to our soul groups, it's like a big high school reunion, and everybody's sitting around laughing, saying, hey, you remember that time I did such and such and you got so upset, and everybody's just laughing about it, because on the fifth dimension we just see the humor in this of how we played out these parts as great victims, but we did learn and got the gift from the experience, because every problem has a gift in it. And the gift in this case was raising into compassion, realizing that the person might have been quite sick at the time they did this particular situation to you, or you felt they did it to you. And you don't have to take it personally. It was a lesson, and they happened to be the person you selected to play that part, and they agreed to play that part. May I give you a suggestion or an experience of Marilyn's that might help you to see how much beneficial this can be in your life?
Please do.
When she was meditating one time, after having prayed and sent a lot of compassion and love to her ex-husband, and it was a domestic violence situation, and he tried to kill her, and she was just terribly, terribly in pain about a lot of situations. She learned to forgive him. Now, a lot of people would say, I would never forgive somebody who tried to kill me, several times. But she knew she had to cut the chain if she was going to outgrow the situation and move on in her life. So after many years of praying and sending him love and forgiveness, he came to her in spirit, and he's not even dead, but he came to her in spirit, and he said with a very heavy heart, do you know how much I loved you to play that part. I really didn't want to do it, but I knew the lesson was necessary, and I was agreeable to do it, and I'm sorry that it was so painful to you. That changed her attitude about so much, and seeing how these people are really trying to help us. When you can see they're trying to help you to spiritually grow and your soul to become a brighter soul, because you healed that part of what needed to be healed. And you are lighter, your energy is no longer that dark, heavy density. You have moved up through the dimensions. And I would like to explain a little bit more about those dimensions tonight, because for some people it could be fearful to move forward spiritually. But third dimension is where we have come in. We wrote our scripts to learn these lessons that we already agreed upon, and that's where we became a planet of contrast, and there was hot and cold and red and blue and all these contrasts. But as we went down deeper into density, heavier density in our energy, it became much more rigid and much more constricting. And there was right and wrong, good and bad, criticism and judgment. And you needed to understand that's the game we have been playing. And it was a game or an illusion. Some people call it Maya, like the Mayan Indians. And this illusion in India, they see it as an illusion. You are living in an illusionary world of the ego. And now it's time that we are moving out of that. So it doesn't matter what the face of the person is. It's time to finish up any unfinished business with your forgiveness tonight. So as you do that, and you go home and you meditate about this, and hopefully are able to see the bright light that can come from this and move out of the darkness that's keeping you down in the third dimension. And in meditating about it, you become God conscious. And it might not be easy to make this adjustment spiritually at first, and that's the lower part of the fourth dimension. You're God conscious, but you're open to adding love to your life, finding more flexibility and finding choice in your life, and being open to more spirit growth as you move on. And as you do ascend in your attitudes and your beliefs and your actions, thoughts and words, and become more God conscious, as the last few sessions we've been helping people release those other dark energies, and as they move into the higher part of the fourth dimension, you are God conscious, but you are now coming from what is the most loving thing for yourself and others, rather than how am I hurt and victimized, and God, please, I don't want this to happen again. Instead you say, God, help me to move above this, take the higher road so I can continue down the path and move away from being that victim and that heavy, dark, dense energy of the ego, where it is dark, and I want to move out of that section, because in ascension I need to move into God's grace. And that magic eraser, light erases darkness, grace replaces the ego, and as you move into God consciousness, that's the fifth dimension, that you are living it, not just talking about it, not just reading about it, but you are actually doing what Jesus said in the New Testament. He was preparing the way for us to bring heaven to earth. And that's the fifth dimension. Doesn't that sound wonderful?
It does, yes.
And so this is why when I talk to people about ascension, it's because most of us want to be in heaven, and when you do pass over, the negative feelings do disappear, but the energy of coming back and still healing is necessary for reincarnation. as you gradually move higher and higher in fifth dimension, you won't need to come back again. You will have healed all those lessons. You will have learned how to have the flow of being one with God and passing out God's love, filling yourself with love, and you're just being a channel of expressing that to others. You're acting as God in other people's lives from that loving, unselfish place, rather than in third dimension coming from the selfish point of view of competition and all the things that go along with trying to be first and have all the right answers and know everything. And you come into a much healthier, loving place of, that's what the Lord's Prayer is about. When it talks about heaven on earth, you become heaven. You are heaven in your bodies. And as you dispel the dark negative energy, that heaven inside of you starts to manifest to those around you. You will begin to see little changes. You might offer to help somebody you wouldn't have helped before. You might contribute to a cause that before you thought you couldn't afford, because there's always enough abundance so that you can share whatever you have, pass it on, and know that you will be replenished for more to share at another time. So you will find yourself thinking differently about somebody else than you did before. You might even laugh at some of the tricks they play on you to catch you. In your old way, you would have been furious, and you look and say, oh, I know where that's coming from, and I'm not going to defend myself. I am going to go into passive resistance. I've healed that. I'm not going to play their game of that illusion going on anymore, because I'm full of love and I only have love to share. And you will have moved into, as Max said earlier, being in control of your emotions. Your energy will have been purified. You will have purified your soul. And I hope I'm not jumping and moving forward too fast for you people tonight, but it is such an important thing to understand that you are in charge of your feelings. You are responsible for the things that go on. You created them before you came in, and now it's time to change that. You get to create heaven and not keep recreating the past. What a difference. How does that feel tonight? I hope you all are looking forward to becoming the Christed you, and that's what we mean by you are a Christ. You have left the darkness, the dense energy behind, the fear, guilt, and shame, and all the other negative energy, and moved into being as if you are the Christ, the light of the world. And we don't want you to put it under a bushel basket. You're to show your light. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. And as you move into that space, you will feel that light inside, and it will grow, and it will fill you. And people will see by your aura. You will walk into a room and you will be a bright light. Believe it or not, it's even possible, if your light is bright enough, people will even see your halo. How's that sound? So as you move into that, do not be afraid. Cooperate with the universe. It's there to support you through the whole changes and challenges. And it has never let you down. You still are doing just very well where you are. Put that next foot in front of the other and just keep moving forward. You're going to do just fine. Do we have any questions tonight?
I have one.
Well, thank you, Mac.
Do we address you as St.Germain?
Yes, that would be appropriate.
I'm thinking about scripture. I think it's in John, and it's also in the Master's book too. I'm talking about where you let the Christ stand forth. When Jesus was in the wilderness, and I think the words that are in the Bible was, he said something about stand behind me, or stand back, Satan, something to that effect. Was this where he was letting the Christ, he was letting his setting his ego aside and letting the Christ stand forth.
That is exactly what was happening. His old emotions, the negative, dark ones that had been running the life, his ego, edging God out, some people call it, those have mostly run civilization for the last 2,000 years. Greed, power hungry, all those kinds of negative energies have been guiding forces to some very powerful people that we have suffered because of it in some parts of our lives. And so to leave all of that control and manipulation of others behind and to say that is Satan, it's what he meant. Satan is not an individual. Satan is the emotional negativity that can motivate some people's lives. And some people might say it's the devil made me do it. There was a comedian who would say that. But it's really not letting your ego run your life and moving out of that into Christ consciousness, which is all love.
So when Jesus is speaking in book 3 of the Masters of the Far East, and he tells us to let the Christ stand forth, what he's doing there, he already gave us the example, so he's telling us to set our ego aside and let that Christ within manifest. Let that become our guiding control rather than our ego.
Exactly. That is what we are attaining. You see, we started out as one with God. And there were several weeks back I explained how our spirit came to earth and became more dense to get into this situation. It was a very lengthy talk that night. John, I believe, said it actually. I was there that evening, I believe, hearing him say that. And he explained it, that we put ourselves on the third dimensional plane and that it was important for us to move out of it and that we are just moving back to where we started from. We are moving back into the Christ consciousness from where we began. And so it's just a cycle that's going on in our lives. If you think of it as a clock, and from 12 o'clock the hand goes down towards 6 o'clock, and you went away from God, our density got deeper and deeper away, and the darkness covered our attitudes and emotions, and we came from that spot, and now the hand of the clock is moving from 6 back up to 12. We're returning to our original state of being. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. May I ask another?
Yes,
Jesus or some of the other masters in the teachings of the Masters of the Far East refer to the I am, and sometimes they refer to the Christ within. Are these just two different ways of using words to express the same thing?
Exactly. Many people get caught up with semantics, and what works for one person's frame of reference does not work for another. So in expressing it in different ways, some people call it ascension, some people call it atonement or attunement. There's other ways of describing this, many ways to express it. The other night, Marilyn heard someone talking about shape-shifting, where they were actually describing this process, but with a different word. So what I know today is that the words aren't as important as you're doing it. I suggest that you try to employ these ideas that you've heard tonight into your life and actually see the results are magnificent and your Christ consciousness can come forth.
Thank you, St.Germain.
I think it's time for St. John to come in. So if you have no more questions, I am going to leave and you can have another little talk. And so good night for this evening and enjoy the warm weather.
Good night. Thank you for coming.
You are so welcome. Good evening. I am John.
Good evening, John. Welcome to our circle.
Well, it's so nice to be here and to see the familiar faces, and I want to welcome Kim. I think it's wonderful you came this evening, Kim, and welcome. You are so welcome to come again. And I wanted to expand and bring a broader view of what's going on with the changes of ascension. I know St.Germain was explaining the personal part of ascension. You might call it the micro part of what's going on in the universe. And as that's going on in the universe, there is a macro part going on at the same time. You are also changing the attitudes and the third dimension of the planet Earth. As you change, the Earth changes. As you grow, the evolution of spiritual consciousness raises the planet to higher and healthier ways of heaven on Earth, which is happening and evolving, but is now still pretty much behind most of the scenes at this point. It's happening at a very beginning place. You see, there has been 2,000 years of this lower, density to clear away and to shine light on it. When you go into a dark room and turn on the light, what happens? There is no more darkness. And we are in the grips of this change happening on the planet with different countries. You know about the unrest in many parts of the world, and especially the unrest in your own country of the United States. The turmoil and crisis of the economy, the politics, changes that are coming in various other parts of how things are handled in the government. You will notice that things are collapsing. The economy is collapsing. California has had troubles for several years. Washington is having big economic troubles. And I am here to tell you this is all necessary, just as you have to forgive those in your life so that you can create a new foundation upon which to build your Christ consciousness. The government, the economy, and all parts of the institutions of your social being are collapsing. It is necessary. There is nothing to fear. And I know fear is only the lack of information, and that's why I'm here tonight, to help you understand that in trusting God and clinging to the God of your understanding, you will not be caught up in this collapse like most people. We gave Marilyn this prophecy 23 years ago to view this collapse as a hurricane happening. People are being whipped around through homelessness, losing their homes, losing jobs, all kinds of experiences to bring them and get their attention to become God conscious. If you already are in the eye of the hurricane where God lives, you will not have that problem, because the eye of the hurricane will be your peace and serenity as the hurricane around you is going full blustery, as you can tell from the news lately, and for some time. And the Dow Jones, I believe, went down again. And these things are going to be happening, ups and downs and changes and swirling around, and people are going to be devastated. You people in this room are so blessed. I want you to go home tonight and make a list of your blessings, and every night to add something new to your blessings. You will be in the eye of the hurricane, hanging on to God, hanging on to knowing that you trust and have faith that you will be taken care of, protected, and safe. That is a big word for many people, to be safe. I'm here to say that this year 2010 is an important year for the bottom to fall out. 10 means that it is time to start over with a new foundation, but there will still be lessons that will be needing to be learned and rearranged. 9 and 1 make 10, so you have completed the old cycle of life in the darkness, the ego-driven motivation of many people. More and more people are becoming enlightened and becoming more spiritually involved with growing into the light by various practices, book studies, and places they go for help that are truly from the truth. And that cycle of the old is falling apart. It has come to an end. And the new, number 1, is the beginning of a whole new restructuring upon which to build. So you have, in being a 10-year, there is going to be some great turmoil continuing this year. It is like when a new cycle starts, great turmoil, chaos, fluctuations, challenges, rearrangements of the pieces all being there and broken up, but they need to be rearranged in a healthier way on a foundation that is of solid stability. In the Bible, it talked about building your house on a rock, not sand, and that's exactly what is happening. The sand structure is falling apart, and the rock is coming into place. And the order necessary that has to be put together feels like it's uncomfortable, disarranged, and you're out of control of it. Know that God's in control of it. And know that you are not responsible. It's just that you need to let the universe reorganize. I like to use the example of Marilyn's granite countertop. This was before granite was popular and considered glamorous for a house. Her granite has been there for many years. And she was looking for countertops and was thinking of Corian, and discovered that Corian was twice as expensive as granite. And we told her it's artificial chemicals. She didn't need that. It would be like sand. She needed a solid rock in her house upon which to build her new structure of her life. And she discovered it was actually cheaper to buy the granite, and that was became the new rock of her life as a symbolic way of creating a stable surface to build upon. And that's what's going on. The artificial, the parts that are not real are falling and collapsing because there's no stability, there's no reality to it. So know as we move into the next year, 2011, that that is a very powerful spiritual year, because it's the beginning of the new healthiness being formed on top of that foundation that is now taking place with the collapse of the old and the new forming. It is not in view of the public as of yet, but over time it will become more obvious. There are being changes. And as you go into the next year of 2012, that is a very powerful year, even though there is still going to be a lot of disarray and new laws, or lack of laws. Laws will be taken off the books that are not even needed anymore, because we won't need the control we had coming from those that were so insecure and wanting to have power. So there's going to be humongous changes in all parts of our lives as we move into that wonderful heaven on earth. And as we progress into 2014, there will be a lot of turmoil and change again as we continue knowing that you're in the eye of the hurricane while these changes into the heaven on earth is happening. And I'm trying to give you information so as these things are going, stay close to God through your meditations, through your spiritual reading, through the people you associate with, through keeping your ideas and emotions on as high a level, higher road as you can, as these things are going to be leaving and dissipating and collapsing. There will no longer be a third dimension. Eventually it will disappear completely, and we will have just as we move into the year 2015, you are going to see a huge transition become aware in the public that we have moving, and we are moving into a much healthier surrounding, healthier environment, healthier lifestyle. And by the time we get to 2016, we will definitely feel how much change has happened, and as you look back you will see a large difference of what is going on. So as you move through the calendar for the next 9 years, a new cycle is approaching on us. Just beware that under the surface God is in charge of rearranging our new healthier way of our lifestyle of love that we have longed for in our hearts, and we are coming home. It will not totally come into being rearranged into a totally settled, not permanently, but because there's always flow, but into a more permanent way of what we can count on until 2025. And at that point, your lives will look different than they do today. You will see that we have come together, heart-to-heart connections, joining in song and praise, showing God how much we are connected as one, working in cooperation with each other, sharing, bartering, and working in cooperation with the universe, and that we will have brought that new way of life that has been so celebrated through many, many songs and verses and books that people have tried to promote, that this is coming. And I just want you all to know that you are all in a very safe place, and not to lose hope, not to lose your state of being secure in God's arms, that it will be a turmoil time, it will be frustrating at times, but it will be necessary for us to move into the place we need to be. So just as you are inside of yourselves changing, you are on a planet of change. And this is the most glorious change that has ever happened in the universe. As some of you know, that the Mayan calendar was about this change. And it is a very glorious time. All the angels in heaven are singing praises and watching and supporting and doing everything they can to support us in this activity. Not only the angels, but the people out there with the Ashtar Command, other people from the Pleiades, Arcturus, all the Ceres, all of those people are there supporting us and helping us through this. And I hope that as you stay close to God, you will be centered in the eye of the hurricane, and you will know that the truth will set you free. You do not have to be out there with the others, even though the news says statistically so many people have lost their jobs. Yes, they have. God doesn't worry about statistics. He worries about his child. Those are just numbers that people are using and putting on the news to scare people, keep them in fear, and you have nothing to fear. You are loved and protected and totally safe. And all you need to do is cooperate and go along for the ride. It might be a little bumpy, so hang on to your hats.
Thanks, John.
Are there any questions?
I have a question. That's Rosanna.
Yes, Rosanna.
Are things going to get better for my son and his family? And have I learned the lesson I need to learn?
Things are going to get better for your son. What is his name?
Kyle.
Kyle. He is learning and growing too. And the best lesson you can have for him is to send your love and support, no matter how hard that might be at times. It's a mother's wish for people not to go through the pain they went through. It's a mother's wish that their children have a better life than they had. Just remember, he's experiencing the lessons he wrote out for his incarnation. His higher power is with him, showing him where he needs to grow and make changes in his life as he progresses through his experiences and lessons. And the only way he can make those changes is as you lovingly support him and otherwise let him learn from his mistakes. It is not an easy lesson for a mother, as you probably know. There is something about being a mother to a son that is a very special connection. And you agreed to come into this earth to help learn to send him love through no matter what problems he has. That he will find his way out. Let him find his way out. And that's when he will find it out, is when you step back and allow it to happen. With your love, to say I love you and let him figure out his own answers, because they are his own answers. You see things through your filter. He sees them through the filter of his own necessary experiences and path. So it will, I know it will get better. It might take a little time. As we say, Rome wasn't built in a day. So patience is of the highest lesson in this for you. I know that patience means that you are in God's will and letting God be in charge of his life rather than you. That is a hard thing to do. It's called detachment, but it is very productive. For if you interfere by trying to say, I have an answer that will help you, I see things this way or whatever, you've actually cut off his legs and he cannot walk forward. If you do it for him, he will not grow and progress and will have to continue those lessons until he's ready to take responsibility on his own. So I hope this has given you a little insight. I hope that you see that it will eventually come around. It might just not be as fast as you had hoped.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But then I also wonder about his children.
That's what, if I may add to that as well, where is my nephew supposed to live when he comes home? I can give you more information.
Okay, so he is gone from the house right now. And it's not constructive for the nephew to stay there? Is that what I'm picking up?
I think it's not.
How old is your nephew?
12. I'd like him to live with me, but I don't know how that can happen.
All right.
That's what I need advice about.
He is old enough to know where is the best place for him. I would ask him how he feels about it. If he's very uncomfortable being around his father, I would pay attention to that and try to say there are some better options. If he feels like that would be a workable solution and for some reason they might need to work out some difficulties between them. And who knows at this point what they still need to work out. And there will come a time when that will happen. And your nephew has his lessons to also deal with. But to let him trust his feelings, Right now, that is the most important thing, that he is in a place he feels is right for him. If not, it will distract him from his schoolwork, it will distract him from his friends, he will isolate and not feel like he is having a voice in his life. And he needs that right now. Does that make sense?
Yes, very much so.
I would go with his choice and his decision of what he feels is best for him. Inside, he knows. Little children are not given credit. In fact, Marilyn wrote this in her book. Little children are not given credit for their feelings as if they have none, and they're often not acknowledged or even discussed or allowed to be shared. And in sharing his feelings, then he has a chance to at least get it out in the open, and he can maybe change his mind. You might present options and choices for him to look at and say, how do you feel about this? How do you feel about that? Do you want to come up with me? We think this would be a really good solution. What do you think? Let him make his decisions. He's old enough to do that. I know people want to protect children. Let me tell you. He came into this life with these lessons. And every time people interfere, those lessons take longer to be resolved. So I would follow your heart and follow his heart, knowing that God has a bigger plan in his growing experiences. It's not an easy thing to necessarily do. Hopefully, with prayer, you will find the right way to handle that. Does that help?
Yes, thank
Not maybe the answer you wanted.
you. No, but that's the right thing, I think.
It's the right thing is to do, to allow people to have a voice and allow their feelings to be heard.
Mm-hmm.
And if in doing that he chooses his father, I would make sure he knows he has a safety net, that he's welcome any time that he needs to get away, that he needs a space to come to, that he's always welcome. In fact, if you have like a room or something where he has things in it, he can come visit any time. In fact, that could be an option if he does choose to be with his father. Say, well, gee, we'd love you to come over this weekend and stay at our place. Give him some options and alternatives and ways to break it up if you feel he needs your loving support. He needs to be around it, I agree. But I would do it in a way that is not, you see, people like to do things from one extreme to the other, and the pendulum swings through the middle, which is reality.
Mm-hmm.
So I would suggest finding a middle of the road ground to meet everybody's needs if possible. And that might mean sharing where he lives or stays at times. But it would give him the good influence you're trying to give him, which I really commend you for wanting to do. However, he has to be open to it or he will resent it. You will not gain ground if he's living in your house with a resentment. You will lose him from that. You will keep him if you allow him the time and space to be himself. It doesn't matter where he lives if he knows that you're always there for him and love him. But if he has options and places to help soften and buffer the situation, that is even better. And I would look at as many options and choices and say, how do you feel about each of this situation? And then come to an understanding that he generally can pick, saying, this is what I want to do. When his heart is in it, he will grow if you are involved with the actual 24 hours a day or not. He will grow because that's what's right for him. All right, before I leave, are there any more questions?
This is Kim.
Yes, Kim.
And I just wanted to know if there was any last messages for my father.
And your father's passed over?
Yeah.
Let me see what I can What is your father's name?
Bob.
Bob? He has not been gone too very long, has he?
No.
Can you tell me how long he's passed over?
A week.
That's what I was wondering. He's still, I was hoping I could bring him through and his voice could talk with you. But what I'm being told is that he's in a hospital type of environment, recuperating from his passing over, and he's not able tonight to talk with you, but he will be able to be healthier to handle that after a few more months. He is resting. He apparently had a lot of illness, is that true?
Yeah.
They're doing a lot of work on him right now to restore his health so he can move into this new life. I'm seeing him in a type of coma as they are working on him in a hospital type setting. He's doing very well and responding extremely well. They said that it is just a matter of time before he will be up and around and able to talk with you. But he is in a unconscious state. It is necessary for that right now, so the work that is being done through the spirit doctors can be performed. I see nurses and I see doctors around him. He's very peaceful and content with what's going on. He understands they are healing his illnesses. They are restoring him so that he can move out of this setting as soon as possible. And he can't really express himself like he would like to you tonight. He's sorry about that. But he loves you very much. He misses you. And he says that he would like to talk to you when he is more able to do that. And wishes you a very, very merry wedding. I am going to leave now, and I wish you all a very pleasant evening. And we have Ariel to come in yet, Archangel Ariel, so she is going to be here in a minute.
John?
Yes?
Would you check with Martha? Marilyn's been in trance for over an hour. Would you check with Martha to make sure she's doing okay and she can continue?
All right, I'll do that.
Thank you.
I'm Archangel Ariel, and I was just told I can only spend a few minutes with you because the time is up. I want you all to know how blessed you are, and that you are precious in God's sight, that you are the only special child that He has special plans for, that each one of you is coming into a better life, a better loving lifestyle, and He wishes you all the best, and to go home, as you were told earlier, and count your blessings. Good evening.
Thank you, Ariel.
Well, good night, everybody. I guess our evening has come to an end. It sure did go fast tonight. Seems like we just got started, and here we are again, ready to say goodbye and good evening, but we sure wish everybody comes again, and we had a great time, and I know it wasn't the most happy evening, but it was information we thought was valuable to get out there to people. And we need to know what's going on so that they don't have to be afraid. So I'm just going to say I love you all, and toodaloo.
Toodaloo.